ONEV, on to never-ending victory.
Welcome to the ONEV podcast. I'm your host, Mike Krzyston. I'm joined with my co-host, Tatiana Micic.
Hello.
And today we're filming live in Arizona with our guest, Frank Molinaro. How you doing today, man?
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us here. We were actually here a couple months ago, back in February. You had us over for dinner.
Yes,
You know,
sir.
it's a beautiful backyard. You are a 2016 Olympian. You are an NCAA champion and an avid golfer as well, is what I'm hearing. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and how you ended up here in the beautiful state of Arizona.
Sure. I grew up wrestling my whole life since I was 4 years old, and just my life goal was to be an Olympian and wrestle in the Olympics, become a national champ. So when I got to the end of my career and I was looking to transition to the next step, I really wanted to get into coaching. And I met my beautiful wife, Kara, and her parents went to Arizona State. She was a gymnast from Oregon State. And when it got time to find a coaching job, I just wanted to get out to the West Coast, and it's been great.
Nice, man. Where'd you grow up?
Jersey.
Yeah? Yeah, whereabouts in Jersey? Tell me about that.
I grew up in South Jersey, right by the beach, and had a good high school program, a couple team state championships. My parents actually relocated after my freshman year.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up in Middletown, New Jersey, and they were pretty good at wrestling, but we really wanted to get to the next level. And my parents bought a house an hour away from where they worked. My dad actually commuted I think 75 minutes there and 75 minutes back. So both of my parents went from being 5 minutes from work to commuting 3-4 hours a day.
No way.
Just so I can go to school. For the first couple of years, I was kind of living on my own in the mornings, getting ready for school, taking myself in. And it was a great childhood, though.
Yeah?
They did good.
How'd you get into wrestling?
I started by trying all the sports. I tried football, baseball. They had a rec program for wrestling, and I just really liked wrestling. It was fun. It really got a lot of my energy out. And then I liked the 1v1 kind of aspect.
Yeah, the individualistic,
the combative.
yeah.
We talked about that today, the 1v1 aspect.
Yeah.
Ivana brought it up.
Yeah, we were hanging out with Devon. We did this video with Devon and his sisters about favorite sports, or it was about wrestling in general, and
What do you like about it?
Yeah. They kind of mentioned how they grew up, because Saban's the oldest, how they grew up with just knowing that pretty much, and just kind of being more tied to the individualistic sports, right?
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's cool, and I feel like it develops you mentally in a way. I don't know, when you have a team sport, and then I don't know, I would make an excuse and be like, well, it wasn't my fault. You kind of put it all on you, I feel like, which is a good and bad thing.
I like it too, because it almost feels like you're in control of your own destiny.
Yes.
There's really no excuse if you take complete ownership of it.
Yep.
You can make it happen versus team sports. But I definitely see the value in both, working. And wrestling has its own kind of team aspect, but at the end of the day, it's just you out there wrestling. It's
Absolutely.
hard.
Well, speaking of the team aspect, you were at Penn State, kind of at the forefront of their dominant run that's going on there. Can you talk a little bit about your decision to kind of go in that direction for your collegiate career?
Yeah, so I was at a wrestling camp in St. Paris, Graham. It was a Jeff Jordan state champ camp. My freshman year of high school, I didn't win the state, so I was going to this camp every year. And this guy was 4-time All-American, Jeff Jordan. He runs the camp. Yeah. And every night session, he runs a 2-hour live session. And that was my favorite part of the camp, because he'd bring all the best kids in Ohio and all the best recruiting coaches. And Penn State was there, and I was like, man, I was getting recruited by Maryland, but Penn State was a Big Ten school, and I hadn't really got much love from them yet. And then their assistant coach was there, and I just kind of went crazy that day at practice.
Oh, yeah?
And he pulled me outside of practice, and he said, if I promise you that I can get a full ride in a year, in 2 years, would you consider going to Penn State? I was like, I'll commit right now. It's Big Ten. They had a good program at the time. Right. It was top 15, top 10. And right then and there, I just kind of told the guy, all right, let me talk to my parents first.
Right.
But I liked them. I liked Wisconsin when I was coming out of high school, because I got recruited by Glenn Pritzoff.
Yeah.
So I had that connection to Jersey and stuff.
For sure.
Yeah, Penn State was just, it made sense being so close. It was far enough away where I can kind of start something different, but then close enough and in the best conference at the time.
Absolutely. I mean, Big Ten still is probably one of the, if not the best conference. It's still, you know, it's hard to compete against, you know, that kind of schedule.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, I personally think that kind of schedule might even hinder a wrestler at times. Just like the competitiveness, the roughness on the body.
Just kind of runs them down.
Yeah, man.
All those weigh-ins, Friday, Sunday.
The dual schedule for that alone is just kind of crazy.
Yep.
You know, when it came to, you know, being in that room, I personally feel like the Penn State room right now is kind of like, I know there's like a culture there that a lot of people really like, but I think when you were there, it was probably just trying to find its identity. You know, what was it like kind of being like an incoming freshman around that time, trying to find your identity as a wrestler, as well as like the culture that you were, you know, consumed with when you went there?
Sure. Yeah. It was a fun transition, to be honest. I mean, when I first got there, my true freshman year redshirting, they took 4th in the country. I traveled with the team every weekend, so I was like rooming with Phil Davis.
Nice, yeah.
And, you know, he was like on his quest to become a national champ, and he had improved every year. He was like 8th place, 5th place, 2nd place, 1st place. So it was just a good time to go there when I was a freshman, and I liked the coaches and everything. But my 2nd year, I think we finished 17th in the country. And then after that, they hired Kale. And I remember just being on campus, we're in the dorms, we're like reading the wrestling forums, and they're like, who are they gonna hire? Like, I heard Ken Shurtow, this guy, that guy, Rob Coles, you know, etc. And then like that same day I got a call from Kale Sanderson. He was like, hey, what's up? And then he like said like some joke to me. I think it was, I saw you wrestle that Conti semi match. He's like, man, you got mad out there. He's like, you got fired up. He's like, you want to win pretty bad? And I was like, hell yeah. And he was like, I'm going to be your wrestling coach. And I'm like, it was just a shock. You know, he called me on my phone. I didn't know who at that point I'd ever have any kind of personal relationship with him or be wrestling for Kale Sanderson. And to be honest, at the time, I never thought like Penn State would go after a Kale Sanderson.
Sure.
You know,
that
like,
was like kind of like the decision, like how LeBron
the best
James
of the best. They went for the best of the best.
Yeah.
And they got him.
Yeah.
You know, they had him on a private jet flying out there right when they knew that they were looking for another coach. And they had a committee that was basically hired to find the next best coach, and must have been a heck of a recruiting job because he was going to be the next coach at Iowa State, and he had some success there. It was alma mater. He loved it there.
He had no reason to leave.
Like, it was a risk.
On paper, yeah.
Yeah, it was a risk for him, but
absolutely,
he took it.
What was that transition like?
It was, at first it was really tough because, you know, you had a lot of new things being thrown at you.
Right.
And I just bought in. You know, the guys that bought in stayed and lasted. And the guys that weren't willing to make changes and adapt and, you know, follow the Kale Sanderson plan, they transferred or they went to other schools. But we had success really fast. You know, from a personal standpoint, I went from not really having as much fun going to practice to, you know, my mindset completely shifted to being grateful to come to practice and excited. And it just like recharged me for wrestling. And my freshman year, I got sick, I was tired, I had all these losses, 19 losses. You know, when Kale came in there, I think I only lost like 4 times the rest of my career.
Wow.
So the main thing that shifted, because I always knew how to wrestle, but Kale was able to get me in the right headspace. He was able to, you know, motivate me. He knew how to motivate me. He would just figure out how to communicate with me and get on my level and push my buttons and also be supportive when he had to. So I think he's just really good at the mental side of it. I think like everybody's pretty good at the tactical, technical, and all that stuff, but the mental side of it is where he makes his money on. And then also just the details, like planning a complete season and peaking at the end. So I was just really confident because I was improving fast. I went from hating kind of cutting weight and going to practice to, oh, I love scoring points and I'm grateful and this and that, and I feel light and no stress. So for me, it was an easy transition once the season started, and I got to know the coaching staff, and Coach Cody, his brother was my personal coach.
Nice, yeah.
So yeah, I think they're great people. I still talk to them every day. I know I can count on them and call them any time of the week. And I don't think that's the same for every program. I don't think it's as personal and focus on the relationship.
It seems like a very tight-knit group that comes out.
They haven't really separated. I mean, Casey, Cody, Kale, those guys have been coaching forever. So,
what do you think, like, the difference between Penn State and Kale, kind of versus like that Iowa, like their grind mentality? We've just heard stories from people we know that went there and stuff, so we just know how they're.
I mean, how I was trained when I was at Penn State is like, that's not what we're about.
Yeah.
We're not going to be pissed off at nothing. We're not going to like create some like fake energy to be mad at, because that is actually a loss of energy. You're wasting energy. You only have 10 units of energy. So if you spend like 1 or 2 of them on putting this persona on, like if you're a badass wrestler, people are going to think you're a badass.
Right.
Yeah.
When you go out there and you
Regardless.
do your thing and you win world championships and you upset everybody and just dominate, like people are going to see it. You don't have to tell them or show them, they're going to tell you when you're that good.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I just feel like that's how we were trained. We're like, we're just going to stay calm. We're just going to have fun. Let's let them like show us how intimidating they are. We're going to laugh at them and play handball and act like this is no sweat. Because at the end of the day, the skills pay the bills. You can be tough, you can be strong, but if you can't score takedowns and you can't ride someone out and you can't turn them or keep them down, it doesn't matter. And I think that was kind of the attitude that Kale preached, and Zeke preaches it now. And I think a lot of it too came from Bobby Douglas. He was an innovator. He coached Kale. He was in his corner every one of those matches. So I think that's kind of like Bobby's main thing is attitude and good technique equals scoring. Let's not get weird about it. Let's not make it into anything else that it shouldn't be. This is a fun game, a fun sport. And I always feel like sometimes Zeke and Kale and Cody and all those guys are all saying the same thing. I'm getting this message like recirculated.
Yeah.
And it kind of seems like Bobby, he was a real good innovator.
Absolutely. Well, you said you lost 19 times as a freshman.
Yeah, that's terrible. I know.
Well, it's not what I was. I mean, I think my freshman year of college, I think I lost 20 matches. So it's like I got you there.
All right, thank you.
But you end up with the national championship and a very dominant performance in the finals. Looking back on that kind of time, what was your favorite part about that whole process, from freshman year to senior year, the growth you had as a wrestler, as a competitor, as a man even?
Man, that's a great question. I feel like it never kind of ends.
Right.
I'm in like a perpetual state of, just trying to make gains. But I think the turning point for me was when I realized that I have to take complete ownership of things if I want to be successful. And then it actually worked.
Right.
Then it actually worked. So then I saw like, whoa, that's a different kind of mentality. That's like, the power of knowing the ending before the beginning. Whether it happens or not, it doesn't matter. Like, if I know the ending before the beginning and I flip that switch and then I just decide that, everything's going to go towards that goal, all of my energy, all of my thoughts, everything that I think, say, feel, and do. Once that, like, light bulb turned on in me and I realized all of my thoughts matter, what I put energy into, my time and attention, then it was like, that was my favorite part of my career. Because that was my senior year, and I finally decided that this is my last year. I have to win. I want to win so bad. There's a million reasons why I don't have to win, but the main reason is I want to win really bad.
Right.
And I realized that, like my parents want me to win, my coaches, I should win. Everything's like leading to that. I have all the tools to win. I had all the training to win, but I realized the 10,000 reasons why I couldn't win didn't matter, because the only reason I needed it was because I wanted it. And that's where it became fun for me, because I realized if I wanted it more than everybody, then I would win, because it started to work,
Makes sense, yeah.
And I don't know, that's kind of like what I tell the kids every day. the bottom line is you got to want it every day. If you want to be a champion, you got to want, it's like you're obsessed. I mean, you know, you guys
absolutely.
know. You're obsessed. You wake up every day, you think about it. You go to sleep, you think about it. And it's no stress. It's just pure bliss. You're like, I can't believe I get to do this.
Yeah.
You know,
You're having fun.
I remember, you know, one of the biggest lessons my coach taught me in college was if you want to be good at something, anything in life, it's like you got to love it, even on the days you hate it. You know, and I feel like you, from what I'm hearing, you exuded that, you know, as a competitor, but even now as a coach. You know, talk about, we'll get into a little bit about your post-college career, but like you're getting into you're coaching now, you're recruiting, you're just on a recruit call. You know, what kind of lessons are you trying to, you know, exemplify for your athletes nowadays?
I think at the highest level, high character wins. At some point, everybody can shoot single legs, double legs, but who you are as a person, you know, I think being a man of integrity and great work ethic and surrender to God or whatever your God is, having that all aspects of it, and it's just that wholehearted focus. I think that's like kind of what I'm looking for in like a top recruit is like, does he love wrestling? You know, it's like, you know, Stefan, he loves wrestling.
Absolutely,
you can talk about wrestling for hours with him. It's like he probably has to talk about things outside of wrestling just to distract himself.
Right, but it's not hard to distract him.
Well, no, it's not. We see him back there right now.
You know, there's a beauty, I think there's a superpower in people like Stefan who, you know, admittedly he does have a little bit of ADHD, but, you know, he's hyper-focused on a lot.
Hyper-focused.
You know, and I feel like that's a superpower for athletes.
It is a superpower.
Do you think you would recruit more people who have that kind of like kind of, you know, attention deficit, people call it? I call it a superpower, I think.
Yeah, I try to, you know, find people that are obsessed.
Absolutely.
Because I know if you love wrestling and you want to be great, we'll make you great.
Yeah.
You know, wrestling's not that complicated. If you got some talent and skill and speed and power, like, you can do it.
Yeah. Steve always says it's not rocket science. We're not reinventing.
It's not rocket science. We're not in the NFL or nothing like that.
Right. You know what I think I really loved about you as someone who watched you growing up, and I think Tanya might also join on, is the fitness. You're strong. It seems like you took weight training really seriously. And was that something that you kind of liked before going to college, or was that something that was always, or did you learn that in college?
That's something like my parents, like my father ingrained in me as a kid. They were like, he was a Division II national champion football, and all of his cousins were, you know, successful athletes, but they were real big into like strength training. So even when I was in like 3rd grade, I'd like go to the gym with them, and they're like, all right, you can't lift like a barbell. That's not safe. Like they would let me do whatever I could, and then when I was like old enough to be able to go and weight lift, like they would all put me through the training. We had like a weight gym set up in my garage. I'd wake up at 6 in the morning, and if it was close to a tournament, I'd run like 3 miles on the treadmill, and then we'd do like bench press, squat, deadlift. Like it was like some raw lifting.
That's some Jersey shit.
Yeah.
It's some
Getting your kids young.
It's raw. It's like we'd have like Saturday, we pull like the bench press out in the driveway and just be like bench pressing in the driveway, like crazy shit like that.
Are you gonna get the boys into that stuff early?
Yeah, we're getting them
already.
No stone unturned with them. They're in gymnastics, you name it, they're
That's
gonna
awesome.
be in it.
What about hobbies? Like other things than sports, like any like, musical things, instruments at all?
Yeah,
That?
I did the band like growing up and stuff like that, but I must have sucked really bad because it didn't last long.
Maybe you weren't obsessed
You tried
enough.
it.
I don't know if that side of my brain works or not.
Yeah.
But I like fishing and a lot. I'm like an avid fisherman, and I just love golf now. It's like my competitiveness.
Did you get into golf because of the individualistic aspect of it, do you think?
No, my wife actually, like, she shoots in the 80s. She taught me how to golf, and then I met her dad, and he kicked my butt at golf and all of her brothers, and I was like, man, I don't like sucking at anything.
No, it's not fun.
Yeah.
No one does.
Fun, yeah.
And then I just really enjoyed it. It's a really challenging game, like, mentally.
Yeah, it's chess, and it's like, I feel like it's one of those few sports that's like, you can't just pick up.
No.
You know? Like,
No, you can't just show up and do it. Yeah, it takes...
Have you ever golfed?
I have.
Yeah, are you getting good?
Dad had us all in golfing as
Yeah,
kids.
I feel like
Let's
I heard-
go. Smart
Okay,
dad.
at the youngest kid, don't do this to your youngest. Like, just stops with the youngest kid at everything. I didn't get into golf. It's like, oh, Tanya's not gonna want to do it.
Yeah,
'cause
that
they
didn't work. We're not doing it on you. They didn't
Like,
love
we
it.
definitely golfed around the house because, like, we have big property, but, like, I was never in the lessons Yvonne and Stefan were. But I can swing a golf club pretty good.
Do you like to? I mean, when was the last time you golfed though?
Actually, before the world, or one of the world championships, the one where Stefan took third 2 years ago, I came home and one of my friends, Brittany, was like taking lessons and super into golf. So we went to
you enjoyed
the
it, though?
range. Yeah, it was fun.
That's cool.
I
haven't
couldn't-
golfed in
We
a
weren't
while.
really keeping score. It was kind of
No,
just,
that's more fun. That's
Yeah.
more relaxing.
yeah. So
Do you keep
not
score on your
stressful.
Wednesday golf
Always.
outings? Yeah. Who do
Yeah.
you go with?
So my chiropractor.
And he adjusts you afterwards from all your
The
rotations.
day before, nah, he's on point. But like 10 years ago, I couldn't even hit the ball off the ground.
wow.
And I put on my background, I will be a scratch golfer. And there was like 8
Dude, I love
years
this. I love this.
where I looked at that thing and I was like, that is a joke. I don't even feel good having that on my the back of my phone.
Right. It seems so large. It seems like insurmountable.
It seems insane,
Yeah.
but I moved to Arizona. I didn't know I was going to be moving to Arizona, so I moved to Arizona, and it's like you play golf year round, and everyone loves golf here, and I got obsessed with it, and then sure enough, I was out at the Duke in Maricopa County, golfing with my chiropractor and a couple of our friends, and I met all these people. I met like a pro golfer in a golf tournament, so I learned all these lessons and kept getting better. And literally one day I finally shot scratch. And it was like, I went from break 100, stay there for a while, break 80 and shoot in the 80s for 8 years.
Yeah.
And then I was getting
What seems
super,
like forever, I'm
super
sure,
close
yeah.
to breaking 80 and finally broke 80. And then boom, I was like shooting like par, it's like, it's crazy, golf's kind of like wrestling. You just keep leveling up.
Yeah. The
Picking
small
up the
gains,
technique.
even microscopic steps are.
The small stuff,
Yeah,
it makes
man.
a huge difference.
Well, it's crazy you said that you wrote that on your lock screen, you said?
Yeah, every
It's just-
time I
yeah.
pop my phone up, it says, I'll be a scratch golfer. I'm like, that's
But I think that's awesome because it's like I feel like even from a young age at a high, if you want to succeed at wrestling at a higher level, it's like you have to write goals down.
Yeah, you do.
It's kind of circling back to your career. I mean, you were a 2016 Olympian. Talk a little bit about your post college career, your freestyle career. You got you ended at the pinnacle with becoming an Olympian in 2016 on a crazy run. What was that like leaving college and being like I'm gonna chase after this dream?
So when I was like, I think maybe Weston's age, so probably like first or second grade, they hand you the yearbook and they say like, in 20 years I want to be a blank. And I was really good at football. Like I was in like Mighty Mites and baseball and all these sports. But I was like, I don't think I'm gonna be that tall. My parents are small. I was like, in 20 years I want to be an Olympic wrestler. And I remember like cerebral as a kid, like writing that on the piece of paper. And I wish I would have wrote Olympic champ. I would have been better. Why couldn't someone have coached me into writing that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I write that down, and then, when I graduated college, I started wrestling freestyle, and I liked it and stuff, but it was kind of like a lifelong goal. I kind of set my goals as a kid when I was in middle school. Like, my parents were real adamant about, where's this plane gonna land?
Yeah.
We gotta know where we're going before we start, and then we'll just go all in, and we'll figure out how we can make this happen. So, goal was to be an Olympian. My parents put me in wrestling. We start out, not much success. And then I hit middle school and I started having a lot of success. I had good club coaches. I started going to all these different places to train. And then after college, I tried one tournament. I hadn't even gone to Fargo. I never even wrestled in Fargo. I never wrestled in any freestyle tournaments growing up. But my first one was University Nationals. I made it to the finals. I lost. And I was like, damn, I think I can be good at this. And then I started coaching, and I coached for 2 years. I met my wife, and then I got the bug to get back to wrestling. I went up to a workout at the Lehigh Valley Wrestling Club, and they had a bunch of good guys there, and I just waxed a few dudes, and I was like, whoa, I
do
think this is a
yeah.
good style for me.
Yeah.
I got a lot of speed and power. I can stay in good position. but I know nothing. I can't even stop a gut wrench. So I did what any normal person would do, and I basically left my job. I took a $100,000 pay cut. No, I'm just kidding.
No,
I did. I did.
I was like, man, that's a crazy.
It's not normal. It was like my parents were
yeah.
fighting me to the death on this.
Yeah.
They were like, "You're doing what?
Right.
You never wrestle freestyle." Because I knew if I was going to be successful, I had to go back to Penn State because that's where I became successful, and that's the system that worked for me at that time.
Right.
And Coach Cody and like Yonamitsu and Franklin and all my partners were there. So I was like, I want to go all in if I'm going to do this. And I want to go back and try to spend the next 3 years training for the next Olympic cycle. Everybody fought me on it. You know, my wife supported me on it because she's a Division I athlete. She's a gymnast.
She got it.
She gets it.
Yeah, she understands.
You know, but we basically left $100,000 plus this cushy Nerf life. We had everything we wanted to go chase this Olympic dream, and I couldn't even freaking defend a gut wrench.
Right.
Couldn't even do a leg lace at that point, you know? But I threw myself into it head first because to me, it felt like I was learning a new sport. I had spent my whole life living on the East Coast mastering folk style.
Right.
We were great mat wrestlers. We were great on top. We put a lot of emphasis on leg riding in like elementary school, all the things that make you successful in college now. But I felt like on the East Coast at that time, we weren't really focusing on freestyle and developing those skills like as you go. Like I was in, you know, give Valiant, for example.
Right.
Great program. You know, they're teaching kids how to be world-class folk style guys, but they're also always making sure they can gut wrench, leg lace, because they know at the end, the pinnacle of the sport is to become an Olympic champion. So, you know, that was the goal. I really wanted to make sure that, sorry, I lost my track.
No, dude, no. I mean, I like where you're going. It's you know, with Stefan's brand ONEV, it's a leap of faith in the fact that he's kind of chasing after all of us that are part of it. We're chasing after, you know, a greater goal of, you know.
Yeah, he's killing it.
Yeah. I'm stoked to be a part of it. Very honored that he trusts me to, you know, lead this kind of stuff. But a big faction of the brand identity is chasing after your dreams, man. And I think that's something we really want to inspire, you know, through the brand, through him, through the art we make. You know, can you speak a little bit about the importance of, you know, if there's kids out there, adults even, that are kind of on the fringe of like, you know, I want to do this, I want to chase after this dream, but it seems stupid, or it seems like who's going to support me? You know, what kind of words of encouragement would you have for them?
You know, I would just tell them to focus more on craft versus success. Because I think, like, if you focus on success, nothing's ever good enough. You know, you win this tournament, what's next? What's next? But craft is like, I can't believe I get to do this. I can't believe I get to wake up every day, coach 18 to 23-year-old guys that want to be Olympic or world champions and NCAA champions. Like, I'm so grateful to be able to do that. So I would just tell them that, you know, this journey in wrestling is going to turn you into a high character person.
Right.
And it's an investment in yourself, you know, becoming a world-class wrestler and developing these characteristics of an Olympic champion. They're going to make you successful in anything that you do. So I think wrestling builds character, and it also just builds lifelong relationships and experiences that give you the confidence in everything that you do in your life.
Absolutely, man. Who would you say is I know there's a million people that you could probably name, but off dome right now, if you could just nail down one person that's been the most pivotal to you in your wrestling career, who'd you name?
That is hard to name
I know,
one
it's
person.
tough, man.
Like when you've been doing it your whole life.
Right, even me, man. I have nowhere near the success he has, and I can't narrow it down to 5 people. You know, it's insane.
If I'm being honest,
Yeah.
I will probably say Coach Kale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like the way you're explaining it, a light bulb kind of seemed. Like
if anyone could get through to me, like that's a hard thing to do. You know, I'm a pretty stubborn guy. I got my values and system and code and this and that. But Coach Kale was, you know, really instrumental in changing my mindset. And I think he's a really good wrestler. I like the way he approaches wrestling. I like the way he trains and his consistency and just his character. He kind of took me from being at this level in wrestling, and we jumped all the way to here. You know, we had this kind of, I call it like emergency brake. I had all these like plan Bs and reasons why things were, and he just cracked that code. You know, he taught me how to take complete ownership of my goals. He taught me gratefulness. You know,
Wow.
and
yeah, you think about that.
that is what, you know, I'm going to go to my grave preaching gratefulness. Not just because it works in my life and it worked in my life, because it's really the only way to view things. You know, you got two choices. You can look at the good in something or focus on the bad.
Right.
Focus on the good, focus on the bad. You know, so I think that was kind of something that Kale trained us to do, is to find the gratitude in every situation.
Absolutely.
And not just for some like feel good purposes, but, you know, to teach us the right way of thinking, positive thinking.
Yeah.
That our thoughts mattered. You know, at the time, I kind of had my own system and beliefs, and I was raised a certain way, and I had a lot of success. You know, so why would I change the way I thought? But when I learned to become more self-aware and kind of filter and control my thoughts, and then I learned about visualization and manifesting and gratefulness, it was just really refreshing, and it kind of lightened things up in the sport of wrestling. In a sport that's like so demanding and hard and intense, and I'm an intense person, to have that kind of outlet to be able to enjoy it,
Right.
that's where I was able to have my most success.
Yeah, I feel like that's so great just to take with you in life, because like,
That's right.
regardless if you're a wrestler, you can use that tactic in anything you want to pursue.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
meditation and
I feel like it connects a
gratefulness.
lot to being present.
Yes.
You know what I
It
mean?
does.
Yeah, and
Yeah, it
not
does.
getting in your head so much
100%.
about anything.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What I'm really curious about, and I guess I haven't really had the opportunity to ask someone who's been coached by Kale, is you know, I hear all these awesome things about him as a coach, as a person, and everyone always talks about the positivity aspect of it.
Yeah.
What was he like when, you know, maybe you know, lost a match, or, you know, messed up in a situation where you know better, you know what I mean?
That's right.
You know, what were those conversations like?
I think it was a growing process for him too. You know, just like the rest of us, like you're kind of learning as you go and trying to improve and do it better the next time. But, you know, going from like Iowa State to Penn State, he had all this pressure to be successful right away. Like, we're paying you all this, you got to win right now. You know, I think like he kind of learned how to be more patient as he went on and just kind of let things happen, because he trusted in the system and he really implemented it well. But in the beginning, there was a couple losses where we were just going through like a transition. You know, we had our new recruiting class, our old recruiting class, a couple guys on the team that, you know, maybe they weren't going to make it, this and that. And that was kind of a rocky point.
Sure.
It was short-lived though. I mean, the first year we took 9th place, the second year first. So the first year was just kind of, you know, ironing out the kinks and seeing who really wanted to be there. Because there was consequences, you know. If you didn't want to show up to practice, or if you didn't want to do the right things, Kale was going to be honest with you.
Absolutely.
But I think like any great coach, you have to be able to take honest feedback from that coach to be successful.
Right.
And
Look
if
at
you
yourself in the mirror. Even,
Yeah,
you know?
that's right.
Yeah.
It's like, if I can't be honest with you, but I think it takes like finesse and like emotional intelligence and being able to read people and kind of get to their level and earn their trust. And Kale was in the business of getting to know the kids first and how they thought, because he knows if he can not change, but educate them on how to think differently, then everything else will manifest.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great lesson. I think a lot of coaches, athletes would probably value a lot from that kind of mindset.
That's right.
You know, kind of circling back a little bit about, you know, your post-college career. You know, 2016, you're an Olympian. You go to Rio, and I know you didn't medal, but you had a solid tournament, you know, and, you know, placed 5th, correct? You lost in the bronze medal,
Yeah,
but
close.
you were close, man. What was that experience like? being present in those moments, like realizing that you fulfilled a goal, a lifelong goal, since you were however old you were when you wrote that down?
Yeah, I would say the bigger success was I found God in the process.
Okay,
You know, I found God.
Tell me about that.
God revealed himself to me in this process. You know, I was kind of like at the end of my rope in 2015. My whole life I had this milestone to build off on, and I just kept getting better and better, and everything was pointing up. And then 2015, I fell off that cliff, had no success. I went like 1-2 at trials. I wasn't getting invited to the training camps. And then after that tournament, I was flying home from the trials, and I was on a flight with Bruce Jenner's coach growing up. She was like an Olympic level coach. She was flying back to Penn State, and I was flying back to Penn State. And both of our flights got canceled. We took like $1,000 voucher. I was like, yeah, I'll take that.
Absolutely.
The next day.
I always wanted that to happen to me.
And I'm like, maybe we can split a rental car. We can both drive back to State College. And she was like, for sure. And this lady was just, I was like in a real vulnerable time. I was in despair. And I was like, man, I'm never going to succeed. I'm never going to have that like next great moment in my career, this and that. And she was just telling me about, you know, God and how, you know, sometimes it feels like the door's wide open. You're going to run right through it. But then God slams it shut and opens another door. Mm-hmm. You know, and she just kind of like revealed God to me. And literally like that night, I gave my life to Christ. I woke up the next day and I started pursuing God.
Okay.
And then like when I started pursuing God, you know, then God started pursuing me. And all of a sudden, I started making all these gains. I started like connecting all these dots in my life. I had this like peace and like fulfillment and contentment that I never had, you know, with training and my life. Everything was always like, had to be gruel and hard, you know, and then I realized like with God, like this is all joy and bliss. And that's where I really like started to take off. That's where I started to connect the dots in my wrestling career. All of a sudden, Micic shows up at the front door at Penn State, and I'm training with him 3 days a week, and he trains me to be a champion. You know, Micic. Actually, I would say the most instrumental person is Kale, but a close second is Micic.
Yeah.
100%. That guy taught me everything I needed to know about wrestling. And he only spoke 4 words. him and Krzyston was like 4 years old, and him and Yona were like, hello. And they would like go talk to each other back and forth.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
And you learned, you know, a significant jump in that year.
I learned how to be a champion when Micic got there. It gave me the confidence to be able to be at another level that all the other guys in my weight class, going into the tournament knowing that this is what it takes to be a champion. I see Yona every day. I observe him every day. I see how he lives. I see how he talks. I see how he trains, how he wrestles, how he coaches. And, you know, I was really just influenced by it because he was just solid. He was real humble. He was real focused on fundamentals. He never really got, you know, too angry or mad. He kind of stayed like neutral all the time. And he just loved wrestling.
Yeah.
I remember one time I took him to the mall and I bought him like a really nice pair of running shoes. They were like $200 shoes. And he was like, oh, these are amazing. And then like 3 years later, he had to go leave the country and I went in his house and they were still in the box. And I'm like, you never wore these shoes. And he goes, special occasion. I won't wear these.
No way. Really?
Yeah. And then like another time, like I took him to the mall. I tried to buy him jeans because he's a G, you know, he's an Olympic champ. He's an amazing wrestler. He's making us all great wrestlers. Let us buy you some jeans, some clothes.
Something.
And he was like, nah. Like he grew up like a fisherman. His dad was a fisherman.
Wow.
And he went the military route and became a great wrestler. And he was just like, nah, I'm just gonna wear these jeans. He just didn't care, man.
Humble.
He was so
Yeah,
humble.
you don't need much.
He was so humble, but he was so good at wrestling. He had 1 or 2 like go-to takedowns. And it also taught me that if you're good enough at your offense and you keep going to it repeatedly, like no one can stop it if you're good enough.
I mean, look at Jordan Burroughs.
Like, yeah, that's right. Like he just double leg everybody, even now, still double legging
to
dudes.
this day, man.
that was Yona. He was kind of ahead of his time. He was outside step, hips in, swisher. He never even came up to his feet. He would just stay on the ground. But yeah, we loved Yona. He lived a couple houses down from us, so he spent a lot of time with Frankie and Kaysen.
That's cool.
It was great.
Yeah, it's awesome. And you're talking a lot about, pursuing God. And I think for people, even people who aren't religious, it's like the things you want, if you pursue them, they will pursue you back, Now, looking at your life, you're a coach, you have a beautiful family, 3 beautiful boys. Let's talk a little bit about the family life.
Yeah,
man.
a little family dynamic with the boys.
How's that going for you? I mean, look at his backyard. His backyard's awesome.
Thank you.
They're very active, Probably have your competitive spirit, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's kind of like been my dream my whole life I have family tattooed on my shin. I got my grandpa on my arm, like the day he died. My grandpa went to every one of my sporting events. Like to the day he died, he supported me day in and day out. So for me, family was big. True story though, I had a journal. Coach Kale made us get this journal. And like, what's your goal in like 30 years? And I was like, I want to have 3 boys. And I was like,
come on,
I hope 2 of them
I need to start writing stuff down.
Right. What are you doing?
I'll find this journal and show you. I'm like, I just want like 3 boys, 2 of them wrestle, so it was just amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't believe it actually.
Are you guys done with kids? You want another one?
Nah, I think we're done with kids, but for me, I always wanted to grow up and have a family and raise a bunch of kids, and if I'm being honest, I wanted boys.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would have loved, if we could still have another kid. If I had a girl, I'd be excited, but I love my boys to death. And I think God gives you
everything works out how it should for you,
He gives you what you need.
Yeah.
But Kara is a Division I athlete. She's hardcore. She loves wrestling. Her dad wrestled for Arizona State. He wrestled.
Wow.
Her dad wrestled for Bobby Douglas.
Okay, holy crap.
I wrestled for Kale. Kale wrestled for Bobby Douglas.
Right.
Zeke Jones wrestled for Bobby Douglas.
Oh, I didn't know that.
This is preordained.
Yeah, this is small
This
world
is God's
stuff.
plan.
Yeah,
Weird,
People say God's plan, but I truly believe if you're focused on God, God has your best interest in heart.
Everything will work out,
Everything will work out for the good. That's why every day I don't lean on myself or my will. I lean on God, and I feel like God has given me everything I wanted. He gave me a great coaching career. He gave me 3 boys, a wife that supports wrestling and sports and all the stuff that I love. So, when I first met my wife, we talked about how we'd raise our kids, right?
Right.
You're going to start a family.
It's a very important question to get out of the way.
Yeah.
You need to get that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you need to get
You
that.
gotta have that conversation.
But she really wanted to raise our kids with faith in God. They can do a lot on their own strength, but they can do a lot more with God. And I'm just glad that I have a wife that supports that.
Was she always religious?
Yeah, she grew up in Lake Oswego, good church, good Bible kind of background and stuff. But yeah, she keeps me in line too.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
good.
What's your favorite part about your wife, man?
That's a great question. Let me think. I love that she's just all in on whatever we do. If it's, we're going to spend all this money and take our kids to Tulsa, even though they've never wrestled in this kind of tournament, we're just going to do everything we possibly can,
Yeah.
And I love the competitiveness and the fact that she'll get done with her whole day and still drive the kids for 2 hours to practice, to go to Glendale, to find a kid that's a Tulsa champ just to wrestle with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
man.
I think we really connect on that level, and I just love it.
Yeah. How much did both of your upbringings kind of help with you now having kids? Because I feel
For sure, that's a good question.
Yeah, how having our parents, I feel seeing how much they've sacrificed for us, you know, and you had to sacrifice for yourself, and now you want to focus on your boys, How did that?
I think it's just, constantly being grateful for how my parents raised me and my grandparents. I got my grandpa. That was the first tattoo I ever got because I loved my grandpa, because he was a real family guy.
Yeah.
he supported everybody, never yelled at his grandkids. And, that was kind of the role model for my dad and his family. So I think it's just like important to honor your parents and respect your parents and love them. And, in my life, my parents were always really supportive. I try to make them proud in my own life and also kind of emulate some of the things that they instilled in me as a kid. Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely like my OG is my grandpa. Yeah, he came to every sporting event I ever did, and I always wanted to make him proud. It's like everything I did, I'd look back and make sure he was looking at me like, "Yeah, you watching this?" Mm-hmm. But
I know that feeling really well, man. My grandpa, he passed when I was a senior in high school, but before that, he came to everything.
Yep.
But I know that the feeling of like that kind of loss. Like, man, that was my number one fan.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
it's a special thing to have and a harder thing to lose, man. It's cool to watch the way your kids interact. I know I've only seen them a couple times, but they seem like they're really free. They seem like they're enjoying life. I walk in and there's a mat in the living room, and you're talking about sending them out to Tulsa. What kind of went into that decision to be like, what, I'm going to make this, they want this. I'm going to help them, achieve this. What was that decision like?
So, I was talking to some of my mentors, and basically it's like, are you gonna coach your kids, or are you just gonna kind of like not pay attention to them and kind of go through the motions? And they love wrestling, and they want to be great wrestlers. So it was hard for me because I just know how hard Tulsa is in all these tournaments. Right. But I'm not gonna be a wuss. I'm gonna coach my kids. If they want to be champions, I'm all in too. So it was more so my wife just saying that we're going to Tulsa. Like, here's what it costs to buy plane tickets.
Kara seems like she is just like,
we're going.
Yeah, dude. I like
we're
that
gonna
she's
do
all
it.
in on that stuff, dude. That's really cool.
But it's exciting because the kids that wrestle in these tournaments, these are the kids that end up being All-Americans, national champions, making world teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I talked to Colton Schultz about it. He's like, Coach, I went there 2 years in a row. I didn't even place. And then I won 13 years in a row. So it's like you have to be exposed to it. And if a kid ends up not liking wrestling or he wants to do a different sport, I'll totally support that. But I want to give them the best chance to succeed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I feel like what better way to do it than go to the best wrestling in the country? I mean, even just committing to the tournament has made me I coach the kids club.
Yeah.
For like 6 hours every week. I do it after Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. We got Rising Sun Wrestling Club, and I committed this year to doing the elementary beginners program and my kids. I coach them all. Wow. And it's really kind of humbled me and made me figure out how to teach things at a more kind of simple level. But then we decided to go to Tulsa. It was like, now I'm thinking like, well, how do we win at Tulsa? Right, what do we got to do to go there? And it really it's made me a better kids, as silly as it sounds, it's made me a better kids club coach.
Yeah, I'm sure.
What do we need to learn right now to be successful? So it's exciting, but, I got a lot of fear. You don't ever want to lead your kids into a suicide mission where they can't succeed.
Yeah,
or they might like turn away.
I feel like there's a fine line. It's like you want them to experience failure to an extent, but you don't want them to be just their souls to be crushed.
No, exactly.
Yeah, because kids take things harder than like adults.
They sure do.
They don't process like the failing the same. You know.
It's so much different with your own kids too. I remember the first time I went to a kids tournament, I was like, I think I was with Ruben Valencia.
Oh, we just talked to
Ruben. We did a podcast with Ruben.
Our first podcast with
Ruben. And he was like, dude, just relax. He's like, video it all. It's great. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm not going to video this. Like, dude, this is bad. Like, he's like, it's not bad. It's good. He's like, you see that cry? He's like, that's a good cry. He cares.
Yeah.
He wants to win. And I'm like,
that guy cares. Talk about a guy that really loved being in the role of dad and coach.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it's got to be crazy, man.
Yeah, I always pay close attention to all these people because, that's kind of my goal is like, I want to be their coach, you know?
Right,
I want to
right.
coach them. I'm not going to force it on them, but I would be lying if I said I didn't want to coach them to be a world or Olympic champion.
Yeah, you want the best for your kids.
It's a good life. It's
I
a
mean,
good
yeah.
life. I mean, it's not bad.
Yeah. I'm curious because it's like, what kind of advice would you have for people that are kind of getting into coaching? I'm starting to help out at my alma mater
Yeah.
back home. You know, and I have a lot of friends that are either coaching or have aspirations to want to coach one day. You know, you coach at the highest level. You coach at D1 collegiate. You're coaching kids clubs. You're fathering 3 bright young men. You know, what kind of advice would you give to people who are kind of wanting to take a step into that field?
I would say just being open-minded and a constant learner, just living in a perpetual state of improvement and using all your resources. So you're just constantly trying to measure what you're doing against what this successful person's doing, and then being resourceful and taking bits and pieces and adding it into your own system and getting creative and kind of developing your own style. And then I guess what I've learned more recently is just to not take things as personal, you know, like not make it personal ever. Instead of that, just kind of be more analytical and just figure out what could we do differently? What does the situation call for? What's the next best thing? You know, what do I need to learn from this so I can improve in the future? And just never think I have the answer. Like I'm always like trying to learn a better way. What's the best way I can do this the most efficient way possible?
Absolutely.
You know, so I believe in that, you know, and I always believe that even if I have a world-class high crotch, I believe that there's a better way to do it, and there's a faster and more efficient way. And, you know, that's kind of like what makes it fun for me as a coach is just learning from my mistakes and learning from, you know, how can we get this guy better faster?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, I was telling my kids this the other day, we talk about all this like motivational stuff and this and that, but at the end of the day, who can improve the fastest? Because me and you both want to win really bad.
Absolutely.
We're both training, we're both like sharpening our technique, but who is going to solve the wrestling problems the fastest and connect all the dots and go out there and execute? And for me, that kind of keeps it more lighthearted, because then it's just, I'm just trying to improve at wrestling all the time.
Absolutely.
And as a coach, still, like that never changes. Like I still want to watch the world championships and all the tournaments and figure out, you know, what are they doing now that's making them successful? Like every year I watch the semifinals, finals, and third place matches. I'm looking to see which techniques work the best on top and bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, last year tripod stand-up, that's the #1 escape from bottom. How do we beat it? How do we do it? How do we score off it more? And how do we get creative? We go tripod stand-up, tripod Granby. You know, how can we create some good sequences out of the highest scoring action from bottom? And the same thing with, you know, neutral. You look at the patterns and you say, all right, #1 finish in the country last year was a single leg shelf.
Okay, I didn't know that.
#2 was scrambling. So it's like scrambling. Like you can't even identify like the finish because it was 6-7 moves in a row. How do you incorporate that into the coaching, and then how do you beat that, and then how do you use that to continue to get better at what you're already good at? And I think that's what makes it fun for me, is like it's never complete. You know, it's always like you're recreating and just adding to it and taking things away. And wrestling is the art of wrestling. There's not many sports like it.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways you can win.
Yeah, I mean, you even mentioned people. I feel like people lose the fact that wrestling's one of the most creative sports in the world.
So creative.
You have to adapt. You have to make things up, make shit up sometimes.
That's right.
You know, and like as you're saying from the coaching aspect, it's like how do we get around some of this stuff? You know, and I can only imagine the mental gymnastics at that level of like having to break through to a kid who's known one thing his whole life, you know, or this certain school of thought and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's hard to like pinpoint it to one thing, but I mean, if I'm being honest, from my experience, I'd say, let's say sports performance culture, you got physical, tactical, technical, mental, spiritual, And then you have like lifestyle habits,
Right.
like how you live your life, your habits. I think they're all so important. So it's hard to say that one made the difference out of all of them. But again, I go back to the spiritual side. Like, if you can teach a person how to be free and held back by nothing, and give them that power and give them that strength, I think they can do anything possible. You know, I was talking to Jesse Vasquez today, and he's like, man, I know I can do it. I start beating these guys. I start doing this. You know, I'm doing this right now. And I'm like, you don't have to do X, Y, and Z to be a national champion next year. It's like, if God, because he's, you know, he believes in God, he has a relationship with God. I'm like, if God put that itch on your heart, you already have that greatness inside of you. He already has what he needs to be a champion.
Right.
He doesn't need to convince himself of it. He just needs to believe, you know? And that was actually Yona Mitsu's like main thing. Like, we bring in like people to translate him, and he'll tell you like, this is what it ate at weigh-ins, this and that. But like, you ask him, he's kind of shy. So you ask him for like a motivational speech. His main thing was just believe. I'm not, what else though? You know, what else do I do? He goes, hey, you can do this, run, but at the end of the day, you just believe. And he's so right though.
Right.
You know, how do you believe in yourself? Well, I think you got to work really hard. I think you got to figure out all the areas that you need to get better at and be completely competent. Because I feel like confidence is more so, you know, I don't want to have a false confidence ever. I want to be competent. Absolutely. I want to know that I know exactly what to do in every position, in every scenario, versus like writing some stuff off in your training, like, I'm so tough, I'll break this guy. Like, oh, will you break him? Will you finish a shin whizzer single? Will you ride him with 30 seconds left? Can you get out of his crab ride? Like, those were the things that kind of obsessed me in my training. And I feel like just being around the RTCs nowadays and having elite level competition at a young age, it really trains kids to say, this is the level I need to go to. And it all bleeds down. So I was right at the grassroots of RTC, like right when it started. They had Tion Ware and a couple other people. So I was training with guys that were basically getting ready to compete at Worlds. And it gave me like supreme confidence knowing that I can wrestle with Stefan, you know, and he's working with me after practice, helping me finish my single leg, telling me that I'm great at this or great at that. Like, kids are going to go win at a high level. That's all they need. They just need the validation. They have the heart. They have the desire. You know, they need RTCs. They need people to believe in them at the highest level. And then it just all bleeds down from there. So I'm just grateful that I caught the tail end of that at the end of my career, because I really did kind of reap the benefit of it, and I'm grateful for it, and kind of recognize that without that, I don't think I could have had that confidence in my wrestling.
Man. A lot to unpack here today, man. But overall, I mean, I think you gave a really good insight to for a lot of listeners. You know, believe in yourself. You know, be present, be grateful. Overall, man. You know, we got to wind up here. Do you have any closing thoughts?
I would just say, you know, be grateful. Be grateful always. Gratitude is the remedy to everything in life. You can take any situation, good or bad, and focus on the good in that situation, and eventually good things are going to happen. I think it's the same thing with people. You know, I try to always focus on the good in people. Even if I'm at conflict with someone, or, you know, we're going through some kind of things, I think focus on the good in people, and, you know, that's it. Bless up.
Beautiful, man. Well, thank you so much for having us back here. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you.
For sure.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to chatting with you next.
Yep. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.